As it turns out, the episode was criticized for its handling of consent. Some viewers and critics felt the show went against its feminist tones by framing the lack of consent as spontaneous or fun, which critics argued dismissed the importance of consent in a loving relationship, especially the ending, which we'll get into. Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be ranking the next episode of the Mindy Project. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm just going to give you a quick agenda. We start with the Potent Notables, which are just a couple interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the episode or series. Then I go into the episode overview, which is just me talking about everything that happened in the episode, and then I do the rank, the namesake of the show, where I rank the episode in 5 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, all to find out what are the best sitcoms of all time. And today we're going to be ranking the 4th episode of the 3rd season, titled I Slipped, written by Charlie Grandy and directed by Lynn Shelton. And just so you know, this is an older series, so I'm not going to worry about spoilers, so spoilers ahead. But let's find out where this one ranks in the pantheon of sitcom episodes, starting with the Potent Notables.
Potent Notables.
So this 4th episode of the 3rd season aired Tuesday, October 7th, 2014. And I think we're starting to see the typical ratings plateau for Mindy as it slipped. See what I did there? 200,000 viewers to its kind of normal 2.2 million viewers. As it turns out, the episode was criticized for its handling of consent. Some viewers and critics felt the show went against its feminist tones by framing the lack of consent as spontaneous or fun, which critics argued dismissed the importance of consent in a loving relationship, especially the ending, which we'll get into. Now, in defense of the episode, Mindy said, "There are 9 of us in the writer's room, and if something is making us debate issues, or we are scared by it, a lot of times that means we should do it. Although it's taboo, it was so relatable to everyone in the room. We wanted to acknowledge that everybody deals with this, but nobody wants to talk about it." I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I get it. Consent's still important. Anyway, those are the Potent Notables. Let's go to the episode overview. So we open this episode with a voiceover as expected and as normal, but in it, Mindy is saying that Danny is the most romantic guy. This has not been my experience with Danny, but let's see where she's headed, I guess. She's eating apple pie and we're getting a montage of him seemingly being romantic, I guess, by giving her more apple pie and putting a necklace on her. But it's shortly after that we find out why the episode is titled I Slipped. Danny is going to try to sneak into Mindy's back door and excuse it by saying, "I slipped."
Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun.
So Danny and Mindy are fighting on their way into work about the slipping incident, and Danny's defending himself by saying, like, "You didn't know how it all went down." And Mindy's like, "Danny, this is not Benghazi," which then makes Danny go, "I never thought I'd sympathize with Hillary about anything." And then Mindy doesn't know who Hillary is? That don't make no sense. Danny finishes his defense by saying he's Catholic. "Even if I think about that," and then Mindy cuts him off and finishes his sentence by saying, "They promote you to cardinal?" Always fun to think about the priests being sexual predators.
Is it?
But the back and forth is working for me already, so that's a good sign. So we head over to the B story after that, which is all about Jeremy trying to repair his relationship with Peter, and as a result, his relationship with the entire staff. Specifically Tamra, because she's hashtag Team Peter. And turns out basically everybody is. Also, Jeremy. Really? He actually asks, "You're not still mad at me for dating Lauren, are you?" Dude, you stole the girlfriend of another doctor in your practice and continued to work with him. That's fucked up. And another news update in the show is that Morgan has become a nurse practitioner. He's upset because people didn't show up for his graduation, and you know what? I'm on his side on this one. That seems like a big deal for people to just ignore. Morgan says that Mindy told him that she'd never be one of those girls that ditches her best friend when she gets a boyfriend, and she's like, "I would never say that. That's all I've ever wanted is to abandon all my friends for a boyfriend." Oh, Mindy. So Mindy decides to go to Peter for advice on the Danny slipping topic. She opens it up by asking him if he's ever slipped, or she can even get it out, which maybe is not the best turn of phrase to use for this episode. He deadpans, "No, Danny's lying." He does eventually convince Mindy that Danny is full of shit, and this means that Mindy is now going to try to make Danny admit that he was lying. How will she do this? She's going to make Danny swear to God that he slipped. But Danny is actually going to die with the lie here. He says, "I don't want to involve God in this, it's just that my eyes are bad at night." She seemingly buys this lie. So she immediately takes him to an ophthalmologist friend of theirs, who is unexpectedly played by Randall Park. I wasn't expecting to see him. That was fun. Of course, the Dr. Randall Park guy is going to say, no, your vision is fine, Danny. And we find out that they dragged this poor guy in to administer the eye exam to Danny, taking him away from his 2-year-old's birthday party. Now, we can blame Danny and Mindy here, but really, Colin, Randall Park, why would you leave that party? Take some accountability here, which is exactly what Danny ends up doing and admitting that he didn't slip. But instead of a regular course correction, Danny really swerves all the way around and puts it back onto Mindy. Hey, if you weren't such a slut, I wouldn't have assumed I could do that. I mean, that's not what he said exactly, but that's the essence. Now, I like that Mindy says that she's not going to let him slut shame her, but I feel like at this point in the show, she needs to do something as bad as what Danny's been doing because it just feels like Danny's a piece of shit. He even tries to shame her about watching porn, which was apparently anime porn, which I don't know why I find that funny, but I do. I enjoy that Mindy would be watching anime porn. But what ends up happening is that Mindy starts feeling like maybe she's boring in the bedroom, which feels like the wrong direction, Mindy. But unfortunately, she's going to get sex lessons from Peter, which feels like the wrong decision. But we're going to head back to the B story now because Morgan is going to walk into Jeremy's office and see him playing the banjo and being a sad sack. So Morgan's going to be like, hey, do you want to go out for a meal? Basically a pity meal. And Jeremy's all excited about it. You really want to go out to dinner with me? Morgan excitedly tells Jeremy, I know the perfect place. The waitresses wear hockey jerseys and nothing else. And then Jeremy, who's still all happy to be invited out, goes, I'll pick a place. So we go from that moment straight to Peter miming sexual positions with a skeleton. Where he did eventually get me was when he puts the skeleton's legs over his shoulders and says, I call this one the necktie. And then he moves the skeleton down a bit and he says, let it drop. It's an ascot. Oh my goodness. But unfortunately, Mindy is going to break down and decide to let Danny enter the back door. She's worried about losing him if she doesn't because he's a great boyfriend. So in the next scene, what we see is Mindy apologizing to Morgan. And I'm thinking, this is right. She should be apologizing to Morgan, but it's clear that she's there for other reasons. So she's saying that she's sorry for missing his graduation and she gives him a gift that is thoughtless. Basically, it's a gift of a framed picture of her and her dad. Of course, Morgan loves the gift anyway, knocks over a picture of Tamara to put that picture in its place. Now, her apology to him is fun, even though it's disingenuous. So I was curious what the ulterior motive was for her to be apologizing to Morgan in the first place, and we're going to find out. It's because now that Morgan is a nurse practitioner, he can prescribe drugs. So that's what Mindy wants. She wants him to prescribe drugs that will make it so she's kind of loopy, so she doesn't know what's happening, basically, for the...
Well, you get the idea.
Now, Morgan is hesitant, but of course ends up agreeing to give her the medicine. But we're going to head back to Danny's apartment. He's watching the History Channel as Mindy comes in lingerie. She's clearly trying to seduce him, doing the things that he wants. She even brings out some scotch and takes a sip. Now, the joke here is obvious. We all know that she's not going to like it when she sips it. But what got me is when she finishes spitting it out, she says, yuck. She's really trying to appeal to him by pretending to like everything he likes. It's a weird plan, but it does lead to Danny saying, I don't need you to be freaky deaky in the bedroom. He says they're comfortable together, like an old shoe, and he likes that. And of course, Mindy does not want to be called an old shoe, so this convinces her to take the sedative so that she can be unaware as he goes spelunking. But we're not going to see the effects of that decision right away. First, we're going to visit Morgan and Jeremy at their dinner date. But we find out really quickly that Morgan has tricked Jeremy. He's invited Peter to the same dinner. He's parent trapping them. He's going to stay there and mediate their differences until Mindy texts. And she's texting him about the sedative, right? So this loosey-goosey Mindy is going to start saying all the things that Morgan has been wanting her to say for a long time. That she loves him and she wants to hang out more. She even suggests they go on a vacation together, which got me because of Morgan's reaction, which was so elated. So while Morgan is texting Mindy, things are not going well between Peter and Jeremy. Jeremy is trying to apologize, but Peter's having none of it. And finally, Jeremy breaks down and is like, look, man, I didn't steal Lauren. She left you. So that's a line without a distinction, really, but it annoys Peter enough that he's going to throw his drink in Jeremy's face. So what would any sane person do? Reciprocate, of course. Except that Jeremy throws something flammable into Peter's face across a candle, which lights his face on fire. So after Peter's face lights on fire, we head back to Mindy, who's starting to show some ill effects from her sedatives. She seems to be hallucinating, and I'm guessing she shouldn't have taken these pills with alcohol. The next thing you know, she's falling off the bed, we fade to black, and the next scene, we're in a hospital. Who's in the room? Mindy in the hospital bed, Danny standing next to her, and a detective. And the detective is like, we believe Danny roofied you. The detective really doesn't like Danny, and she doesn't believe Mindy when Mindy says, well, actually, I roofied myself. So Morgan, Jeremy, and Peter are going to show up now, and Morgan is very concerned. But when the camera pans to Peter, I laughed because there's just 2 band-aids over Peter's eyebrows. And of course, Peter's going to give away the plan because he's going to be like, wow, Danny, your sex put her in the hospital? What are you packing? But what we get first is the climax of story B. Danny, Mindy, and Morgan are so sick of Jeremy and Peter's thing that they're like, look, you guys got to bury the hatchet. Morgan is going to explain to them that they're not famous enough to have a feud. They're just 2 basics having a bitch fest. We're going to end the hospital scene with Danny and Mindy finally having their moment. Danny's going to finally tell the truth, which is just that he was just trying something. Then he's going to go on and say how it's actually patriotic that he did it because in America, we just try stuff. And that's when we get a discussion about consent. She says, if you want to try something freaky, just ask me first. So he asks her then, do you want to have sex in the hospital? And she's like, no, Danny, somebody could walk in. So his takeaway from this is that he should have just started kissing her because asking sucks. This is not a great takeaway, guys. We end up getting one more scene for the B story, which I wasn't expecting, and it's that Jeremy and Peter pitched in together to get Morgan monogrammed scrubs. Of course, they spell the last name wrong, and Morgan asks for a gift receipt. They're like, it's monogrammed, you can't do that. But that's not the end of the episode. We get one more scene with Danny and Mindy. They're going to be trying something new in the sack. Danny is putting whipped cream in his mouth, and then they kiss. And of course, Mindy ends up biting his tongue. Then, while he's smarting from the bitten tongue, and he's dealing with that, she starts biting his hand. But that's how we end, with Mindy being a cannibal. Let's see how it ranked.
Oh, wait.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. We're ranking on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I have a laugh counter where I tally up the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. 1 point per laugh out loud gets added to the score. But before I dive into the rankings, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But without further ado, let's dive into the rankings here. The first category is story. So the story is sort of up and down for me here. I enjoyed the relationship dynamic of it and everything, and I do think that it's a relatable discussion. So from that standpoint, I did give it a 3.5. So let's go to acting. So I thought the acting was really good in this. Chris Messina was really good. Mindy was really good. I don't necessarily like the way that they made their characters go at the end here with consent, but I still thought it was effective and kind of honest. I think the only thing that keeps it from being a perfect score is, Ed Weeks being a sad sack. It wasn't good enough for me to give this a 5. I gave it a 4.5. So let's go to dialogue. So the show is really funny. It always is. But I have to say this episode feels a little problematic sometimes. Like, why is it always seemingly on Mindy to cave to Danny's desires? And you might say, but she doesn't in the end. But that's because Danny says he doesn't want that. It's not because Mindy stopped it. Like, does Mindy have any agency here? And consent is important. And I'm not saying that there's no room for comedy around it. This just felt a little cavalier. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm too woke. I don't know. Either way, because of that, I decided to go a little bit lower. I gave it a 2.75. Well, let's go to the next category, which is episode coherence. I think the only problem I'm really having is that Danny just keeps being a dick, and I just don't know what they're going for here. Other than that, coherence is really kind of perfect. I just wish that we were doing a different arc with Danny. If he's such a great boyfriend, then show him being a great boyfriend sometimes. Either way, I ended up giving it a 4. So let's go to character relatability. Now, for character relatability, obviously I had an issue with the consent stuff, but I do understand the emotions that we're talking about here. Like, what they're saying here is relatable. It just felt a little irresponsible with how cavalier they were about it. Like, I don't think that it should have ended that asking sucks. I'm okay with saying that asking does suck sometimes because it does feel like it takes the spontaneity out of it, but it's still really important to do. I gave it a 4. I still found it really relatable. So that brings us to the laugh counter, and I had 16, which is not super high, but it's, it's high enough. It's above average. This should help keep the rating in the top 3 tiers, and it did keep it in the top 3 tiers, getting a 34.75, which puts it just below the Holy Grail into the I'd watch it again. As for the series average, it goes to a 36.65, which keeps it firmly in the Holy Grail. And if you're ranking along with me, drop your score for this one in the comments. I'm curious what people are going to say about the whole consent thing. But thanks for listening and or watching. If you enjoyed this episode, you can certainly watch more Mindy Project ranking episodes in our playlist, or any other sitcom that we're doing, or movie that I've ranked. And if you'd like to see a list of our episode and series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankedpodcast.com. And for those of you who've been watching for a while and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. Actually, for anybody, please subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Also, please don't be afraid to comment in the comment section or shoot me an email if you want to talk to me directly at john@therankedpodcast.com, where you can send me your comments, questions, or suggestions. I'll be happy to reply. If you really want to support the show monetarily, you can do so at Patreon, patreon.com/therankedpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. But I will leave you with this. Why did Danny end up in the hospital after putting whipped cream on his dick? Because Mindy slipped.
No.
This should keep the
Cut!
This should help keep
Cut!
This should help keep this man.
Cut!
Take 3.
This should help keep the rating.
That's okay. Take your time.